Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the beautiful Lady Shasha. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I'm coming to you from sunny Orlando, Florida.
Oh man, I'm so jealous. I'm coming from you from frozen Michigan. I'm up here in the mitten, so very jealous. So for those of you that, I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory about her. Lady Shasha grew up as a fourth-generation horror fan in Connecticut on a steady diet of HBO, Gore Zone, Elvira, Dean Koontz, The Drive-In, Blackula, and Buster's Pub and Video. I became a big fan of Lady Shasha through her YouTube channel, What Did I Just Watch? I have all the links for that down here in the description, as well as her social media links. One thing I want to say, at the time of this filming, she was doing a Nightmare on Elm Street video series. It's a lot of fun. I would suggest you guys subscribe to her channel. Go back and watch those Nightmare on Elm Street videos. Start with those. Those were amazing. What's a little bit you can tell us about the channel?
Well, one thing that I think is a little bit, I shouldn't say different, but unique, is that I like to cosplay a lot, and not just during October. So you're liable to turn on a review and I might look like anyone.
That makes it more fun for the viewer too, because especially that's something I don't do the cosplay as much, but I definitely try to have decorations about what we're going to be talking about on the video. So when you do that, is it usually something like an original idea that you have, or how did you come up with cosplaying? Like when you do your cosplay, say you're doing a video on Friday the 13th, would you cosplay as a Friday the 13th character, or do you do it as something, is it always what you're talking about?
Yes, and I have. I did the Friday the 13th series, and I actually cosplayed as Demon, who is the in Friday the 13th 5. Demon is the older brother of one of the younger boys that's at a kind of like youth home. Yes. Damn enchiladas.
Damn enchiladas. I love
yes.
See, it's funny. As a kid, I hated Friday 5. Like I hated it with a fiery passion because it wasn't Jason. But that is one of the best ones in the franchise now that I'm older and I can, have a love and respect for what the movie is. And that's totally Jason up until the last 2 minutes. Like, come on, man. Like, yeah, you can say, yeah, it's really burns under the mask, but it's totally a Jason movie up until the last 2 minutes of the film anyway.
Very much so. And it's the second Tommy Jarvis. Yep. Because we got 3 different Tommy Jarvises in the series.
And I think, honestly, I think that my personal favorite will always be Friday 3. And I think that's just a nostalgia thing because that's the one that I grew up with. I watched that one the most. But when it comes to story arc, 4, 5, and 6 that's one of my favorite little mini trilogies to watch. The Tommy Jarvis trilogy of the Friday the 13th franchise, I think, are the 3 most solid films in that whole franchise, hands down.
3 also have nostalgia before being in 3D and seeing, I think that's the first horror movie I've ever seen on 3D. And then the second one was HBO had this special where they were going to play The Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D. And I remember me and my sister and my cousin rode our bikes to the Cumberland Farms to get the 3D glasses. I forget what magazine they were in. You had to buy the magazine to get the 3D glasses to watch The Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D.
That is so awesome. That's something I so wish that I could have seen. Because I'm with you. I've seen Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D, but the first one I remember seeing in 3D, my uncle took me and my little cousins to go and see Nightmare on Elm Street 6, Freddy's Dead in 3D in the movie theater. And I remember, like, again, I've talked about this before. The movie's garbage. The movie's dog shit. I get it. But it's special to me because my uncle took me to see it in 3D. So I remember going to school on that Monday and telling everybody, like, man, she put a bomb in Freddy and he blew up and his head came right at me. Like I thought I was like the cat's meow because I got to go see Freddy get blown up in 3D. Like I just thought it was the shit. And, the things that don't hold up now, like the video game stuff. I was a big Nintendo dork. So for me, seeing Freddy with a power glove was like the coolest shit in the world, Like that was the crossover I needed before I seen Infinity War. Like that's what I needed in my life. So real quick before we get into the reason why you're here, we talked about how you just did a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. By the time people watch this, you'll be finished with that. And you did a Friday the 13th. So I've got to know, just out of my own curiosity, which franchise do you prefer? The Friday the 13th franchise or the Nightmare on Elm Street?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Really?
That's the one that I rewatched. That's actually part of Ken Freddy's Glove.
Yeah.
for yet another horror movie that was bad at the time, but there's still nostalgia for it, and that's Jason Goes to Hell. And I actually that was it the first Friday the 13th I saw in the movie theater? Yeah, it was. I saw it the first two slasher movies I ever saw in a movie theater were Freddy, The Final Nightmare, Freddy's Dead, Final Nightmare, and Jason Goes to Hell. And when the glove came up out of the ground and grabbed his mask, the theater exploded. Like, oh my God, we're gonna get Freddy versus Jason. Of course, we didn't get it until like 2000 something.
Right.
But that moment in the 90s is like amazing.
That to me, I'm with you. When that happened, I freaked out. When, oh my gosh, like I can remember it vividly, sitting at my uncle's house and seeing that happen and me just screaming and freaking out at how awesome that moment truly was. So I can completely agree with that.
And when I say Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite, I'm not saying that it's necessarily better than Friday 13th or Halloween, just that I rewatch it the most. Like there's never a time I don't feel like watching a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Whereas I have to kind of be in the mood to watch Halloween or be in the mood to watch Friday 13th.
See, I'm the opposite. Like I think Freddy Krueger is my favorite of the big three villains, but Friday the 13th was always my favorite franchise. I just feel like it had the most solid films. And again, just our opinions. But that's where I sat with it. So we know what you're doing here in the future with the channel, and we know what you've been up to right now with the franchises. But Lady Shasha, I want to take it back to the past, and I want to talk about what got you started in the horror genre, a movie that I absolutely adore and I love to talk about. Your first horror movie, and your first horror movie was
Poltergeist, the first one that I have conscious memory of. I remember, and here's a fun fact. I am the same age as Heather O'Rourke. So when I saw her in the movie, I'm in my footy pajamas in the back of the car looking at a little girl the same age as me, get sucked into her closet.
Something that I think it's lost on this movie because people just don't really consciously remember it maybe. This movie's PG. You know, this is before the PG-13 ranking was available. And this movie's genuinely scary, even to this day. There's so much horror in this movie, and to see that this is PG always blows my mind. And like you brought up Heather O'Rourke, and I think that's one of the biggest tragedies of all time because that little girl was so special, and you know, a misdiagnosis took her life, and you know, it's absolutely terrifying. And I know you said you were the same age as her, but do you remember how old you were the first time that you had seen it?
I would say about 5 or 6.
What a time to be watching. And did you say that you seen this in the drive-in?
Yes.
That is so awesome. See, I grew up in a video store. My parents owned a video store. So that's
that is amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And so that's how I got my love for movies. And this is one of the ones at a young age that we watched because my kid's sister looks just like Heather O'Rourke, like with the long blonde hair, like look just like her. So this is one of those movies that really messed with us for that reason. And this is a movie that has so many scenes that are just completely bone-chilling, terrifying. Especially, I can't speak from experience, but I'm sure to a young lady that was watching another young lady go through things in this film, that there had to be a lot of, you know, bone-chilling moments. Do you remember which scene it was that affected you the most?
As a child, the clown doll, when the clown doll attacks Robbie, especially since I had recently reviewed this movie, and I recall that during that time, for a lot of us that were born in the 70s and 80s, a lot of us had clown dolls. They would give them away at like country fairs and carnivals, so it wasn't unusual for you to have that type of clown doll in your room. So I think that's put a whole generation between that and it put a whole generation off from clowns. Right.
Absolutely. And that's another thing. Like, I don't think whenever people talk about clowns, their first thing is it. I always go to Poltergeist. You know, like when you see that arm come out and do the rap and his terrified face, like 100%, that's where my brain goes. Cause that, oh my gosh, so terrifying. Because like you said, this isn't a human being. This is a toy at the same time that we all had in our homes. You know, so
and the lead up to it,
you could have genuinely seen right next to your bed, like before you went to bed at night.
And the setup for it with Robbie looking underneath his bed, like what child has not been afraid of what's underneath the bed?
Yeah, and it's even, you know, like as you get older, you realize what they were doing with that cinematography. How he looks under there and there's nothing there, and then he gets up and then it happens. So he already had that moment of, okay, now I'm safe, and then it happens. So like
Yes.
that's incredible filmmaking and storytelling right there. So when you think about Poltergeist, what is the first thing that pops into your head?
Very first thing pops into my head is like what you just mentioned, the cinematography, because the opening shot, the camera pans through the house and it inadvertently, or actually I probably planned it, but it feels like they inadvertently introduced the whole family to you by the dog just kind of walking around and checking on each person. You also get a layout for the house, a feel for where everything is in the house and what the characters are. And it's so much character development without any words being spoken yet.
Right. And it's fun to watch that type of cinematography happen in movies that we grew up with. It's funny because we didn't look for that type of stuff when we were young. When we were kids, we didn't give a shit about cinematography. We didn't give a shit about that. But that's why I love watching movies as a child and then going back and rewatching them as an adult. And I just recently did that. I'm not sure if you remember the movie, The Lady in White.
I haven't seen that as an adult.
I realized that some of my underlying issues that I have in my personal life are from watching that movie one time as a kid. I watched it and there's a scene in it that totally like I watched it and my heart started pounding. I was like, oh my gosh, I've had nightmares about this my whole life. And I never knew where this came from. And watching it as an adult, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. And it haunted my nightmares as a kid. So that's why I love the difference of watching something as a kid versus watching as an adult. Now, we talked again about the scenes in this movie and how intense a lot of them are. And we know which one affected you the most. But Lady Shasha, which one would you say is your favorite scene from Poltergeist?
That's hard because I love the whole movie. As a child, I would have told you the man peeling his face off in the bathroom. Because that I didn't expect it. The whole sequence of him going in the kitchen and seeing the steak from the little piece of chicken, and then there's maggots in it, and then he goes in the bathroom and peels his face off. That whole sequence, I loved it when I was a kid. Now, I would probably say as an adult, the scene when the first paranormal investigator is talking to him in the living room and everything is really, really quiet. And she's just telling this story about how things are. And I don't know how to describe it. It's like the calm before the storm, before the entities float down the stairs and everybody's looking at these entities. And the little things that they added that I notice now as an adult, even though these entities, they're floating down their special effect, they still shined a light on the actors as if they were being lit up by the entities. And I think that really sells the scene. Also the wind blowing in their hair, it really sells the scene.
And I love how that part where they're like, we had this little car and it moved 6 inches, but you'd never know. And they're like, oh, you're going to notice this. And then they open the door and all the records and stuff are all flying around in a circle. Like, that's one of my favorite, that's that dark comedy that I grew up with.
And the scene that immediately follows, because they walk in there all so confident. Oh, yeah, we've done this before. We're paranormal investigators. This is, we got this. And then it cuts to her with the teacup, just shaking.
I love, that's one thing I love about this movie is the dark comedy. Even when the parents are smoking the weed in the bedroom, I'm like, oh my God. I never realized when I was a kid that Coach, I remember because he was in Coach, he's up there getting high. That's so awesome. The little things like that. And a lot of people consider this a Spielberg movie, but to me, this is totally a Tobe Hooper film. Yeah, Steven Spielberg was a producer. I feel about this movie the way I feel about Candyman 2021. It's a even the top, a Steven Spielberg production, a Tobe Hooper film, kind of like how you have a Jordan Peele production. We need to stop with that.
A Nia DaCosta film,
yeah. This is Nia DaCosta.
But Jordan Peele did co-write it, so he has his thumbprint on it. But Nia DaCosta definitely has an eye for cinematography. She made some beautiful shots.
Yes.
But my one criticism, I've said this to everyone, you cannot top Candyman's coat. I don't care what coat that you bring new Candyman. His first coat is iconic. Bring that coat back. I know it's such a small thing, but to me, it's everything. His coat.
the big complaint for me in the newer film, I don't want to get too carried away, but it didn't scare me like the original did. It didn't have those bone chip. I'm telling you right now, in my top 10 of most scared I've ever been in my entire 35 years, up in the top of that list is the very first time you hear Helen in that parking garage, like that rocked me. And then when he's like, be my victim, I am the wisdom, you know, like, oh my, I am the writing on the wall. And like, she's just like, the tears start coming down. Like, I got little emo goosebumps right now. I didn't feel any of those moments in the new film. But I still think that Nia DaCosta is a fucking genius. And I would love, when she's done doing Marvel, like she's doing right now, I would love to see her come back and do some original horror and see what she can do. And I get it, you know, like just like this. Steven Spielberg is a bigger name than Toby Hooper, so you put him on the foreground to get people in. Jordan Peele's a bigger name than Nia DaCosta. You put him in the foreground to bring people in. But I just think that, you know, Toby Hooper needs the credit for this movie that he deserves. And Nia DaCosta needs the credit for Candyman that she deserves. Because the cinematography in that movie, a lot of what she did in that, even like one of my favorite scenes, I wasn't a huge fan of the movie just because it didn't scare me like the other one did. But I love the apartment shot. When we're zooming out.
The wide shot.
Yes. So good. So good. So, sorry, we got caught up there on.
Well, I want to make one more point before we go back to Poltergeist. I was just having this discussion yesterday, and we were trying to figure out what is it about newer films that aren't as scary, because I was comparing the new Candyman to Halloween Kills, and we were trying to figure out what is it that they're missing that doesn't scare us as much as those original, like the original Halloween or the original Candyman did. And we couldn't put our finger on it, other than maybe the audience is too used to seeing these characters. So now it's not scary anymore because there's like dolls and figurines of these characters. So maybe that's what it is. We could not put our finger on why, when someone tried to take an older property and reintroduce it, they fail each time. Even with the Poltergeist, well, I don't want to talk about the Poltergeist remake, but yeah, that's a thing that happened.
Right. Unfortunately, in a second, we're going to have to talk about that. But I would like to weigh in on something you just said. Why aren't they as scary anymore? And I think the big thing for me is, and I'm going to dissect a little bit of Candyman 2021 and Halloween Kills. In Halloween Kills, there was never any suspense. Anytime there was a noise, you know, a swell of music, it was Michael. Every time. You never had that ambiguous moment of, what is it? Oh, it's not Michael. But here he is. You know, you never had that. You know, the fear, like in Halloween 78, you had these moments of, oh, what? Oh, no, it's not Michael. Okay, we're safe. But no, yep, there he is. You know, you always said that. And with Candyman, Tony Todd is what made Candyman. And I'm not bashing the story writing. I love what they did here, because the monster that I see might not be the monster you see, even though we call it the same name. Love that. Love that idea. But the new one didn't have any charisma or personality. It was just, you didn't even see him on screen for very long at all. You know, he didn't have the screen time of the be my victim, or the terrible backstory of the little boy getting his penis cut off in the bathroom. You know, they focused more.
Oh my God, that bothered me so much, because I saw this, I think I might have been, I don't know how old I was, but I saw it on VHS, the original Candyman. And I remember I was in high school, and that scene with just the recounting of the little boy in the bathroom, I covered the mirror in my bedroom for a week. Like, I was really, really, really upset by that movie. It took me years to rewatch it, actually. That's how scared Candyman had me.
Right. And see, what I love right now, and please don't think I'm pandering, but to be able to talk about this movie with a person of color really does mean a lot to me, because I was called racist when I said I didn't like the film. And the thing that bothered me was, it has nothing to do with that. Like, I'm telling you right now, like in the theater, we audibly cheered when that cop at the end was killed. Every person in that theater clapped. We were hooting and hollering. I've never wanted to see someone in film die as much as I did him, you know. And the race thing has nothing to do with it. The reason I didn't like it is because it didn't scare me like the first one. It has nothing to do with the message. The first one's all about the same message. And the first one, you
also,
literally have a scene with.
I think the people who are upset about the cop thing are either disingenuous or they're not familiar with horror. Because I said I recently reviewed Malignant. Her parasitic twin messed up a whole police department. No one said anything. Last year, The Invisible Man was killing cops. No one said anything. Like, usually in a horror movie, if you call the police, they're going to get iced. That's just a norm of horror. So I'm thinking these are non-horror fans who just, you know.
Watch the whole Saw franchise. The whole Saw franchise is about fucking with the cops. And you're right. You know, once they make it about that, and I had people that were like, oh, the new Candyman is just some new woke horror movie. I'm like, you've never seen the original Candyman, have you?
The original, yeah. Like they literally described a lynching in the first one. Like you can't get any more on the nose.
Well, there's a part where Helen is talking. She's like, black people die at Cabrini Green all the time, and a finger's not raised, but a white woman gets attacked in the bathroom, and the whole police squad is there within 5 minutes. You know, like that whole movie is built on the same thing. Like, look, just because we're smarter now and we have social media to talk about social issues doesn't mean that everything is woke. It means that we can bring attention to the things that we were not be able to bring attention to. One of my favorite movies. Hold on. Let's talk about this just for one quick second. If I can find it now, of course I won't be able to. Tales from the Hood.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Wonderful horror movie that's completely terrifying and has the same message. I mean, they talk about the Rodney King issue in that movie. You know, it's always been there, and horror has always been in the foreground of these things. Night of the Living Dead. But, you know, back in 78, you had this. The People Under the Stairs talks about social issues and, you know, poverty lines. And horror started having women be kick-ass characters, not just women that are in the background or hiding behind men. True. Horror has always been inclusive, and it has been on the forefront of social issues. And if you're getting upset about that now, motherfucker, you're 50
you haven't
years
been paying
late.
attention.
Yeah. So
even the silliest horror movies. The other day, I was watching Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. There's a whole subtext in that movie about government bureaucracy, public relation, it's Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and it still had something to say. Right. But there's a subtext I think some people may not pick up on in the new Candyman, and why the main character is the way he is. He's pretty much the new Helen. And I think a lot of people weren't picking up on the subtext of him also gentrifying that area and not understanding his history. He was literally trying to make money off of painting Black people that were lynched. And so if you're the original Candyman, you're looking at this Black man trying to make money off of paintings of a lynched person, you're going to be like, what the hell are you doing? Do you even understand what this is? And so that his character kind of goes to the same arc as Helen. Because he has also been disconnected from impoverished people. And a lot of people we sometimes in America make Black and impoverished synonymous. And that's not the case. There are middle class Black people, there are upper class Black people. And, you know, a poor kid from the trailer park is going to have more in common with a poor kid from the hood than a rich Black kid from, you know, wherever rich, you know, area he's from. And sometimes, unfortunately, this is a narrative that's pushed by the media that everything goes only by race and not at an intersection of race and class. And I think Nia was trying to talk about that, but I think the movie needed a few more scenes to make it more evident, I guess.
I can't wait for the Blu-ray release because I know there's deleted scenes that actually show Helen in them. And, you know, I know there's alternate endings. So there's a lot that I think that we are going to get in the Blu-ray. Maybe we could hopefully get a director's cut version of the film. Because I think that you're right. There's a whole lot of story. You know, when the movie ends, you're like, God, this could have went on for another half hour to let me learn a little bit more. So I completely agree. And I would love to see this carried on. I would love to see what we can do with that. And you're right. Poverty is not a race. You know, it's not. There is no such thing as a poverty race. And it's so upsetting that we still live in a country where those lines are drawn. And I grew up in a very dominant Mexican family, you know, so I've heard it all. And, you know, I sympathize, you know, because it's not fair.
What really opened my eyes is I just stumbled upon a reality show that was on YouTube, and it was a reality show from the UK, and it was about people who live in what they call the council estates, which is like the projects. And they showed both in England and in Ireland. All of the same things were present: children out of wedlock, high crime rate, alcoholism, drug, every single thing was still present. So certain things are a function of poverty and not of race.
Right. Exactly. And they paint that picture here. That picture doesn't get painted anywhere else, you know? So that's the big upsetting part, you know? So I completely agree. And it sucks. Like I wish I had something better to say to make me sound smarter than I am, but it just sucks.
Hey, the fact that we're having this conversation is progress.
Right. We need more people to have these conversations, man, to learn about it from
Yes.
each other. Like, don't look at someone and judge them. Look at someone and fucking learn from them. You can learn from anybody. Race, religion, sex. Like, you can learn anything. Just fucking listen. Stop talking and listen. It's not hard, man. Sorry, guys. I know we're getting spooky here, but there are some things that are scarier than any horror movie we've ever watched. And the divide in this country is way scarier than any horror movie we've ever watched, except Candyman. But I do. You did bring up something a minute ago that I got to go into now, Lady Shasha, and I'm sorry I have to do this to you, but since this movie has been remade, we do got to talk about the remake a little bit. Obviously, I know that you're not a fan of it, and neither am I. But did you find any redeeming qualities at all in the remake of Poltergeist?
It was really forgettable for me. I'm trying to think of. Well, there was one scene with the hands on the inside of the TV that was kind of cool. But other than that,
I'm with you. I just did a top 10 least favorite horror remakes, and I can't say anything because I'm not sure if it's premiered yet. By the time that we've done this, it's in the top 5. And for that reason, because I love the movie. And I'm not a person that thinks remakes are inherently bad. I love the Evil Dead remake. I love the Child's Play remake. I think the remakes can be done very well. That wasn't one of them. So we've talked about your first horror movie, Lady Shasha, and how that movie affected you. But now I got to go scream on you. My little buddy Ghostface has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Lady Shasha? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
It's hard to just narrow it down to just one. Let me think of the horror movie that I've probably rewatched the most in my life is probably Creepshow.
Oh, I love Creepshow. The original one? In the original Creepshow, which vignette is your favorite of the bunch?
Go back and forth. There's 2 that I really like. The first one with Father's Day, and then the crate. It's hard to choose between those 2.
Well, I mean, you don't have to. I totally understand. I love both of those as well.
Those are equal. I love them both equally. Yeah.
So this,
although as an adult, I find myself really enjoying the last one with the roaches. I'll repeat it. As an adult, I find myself really enjoying the last one with the roaches. As a kid, I didn't like that one. I thought that one was kind of like corny, but as an adult, I'm like, that one is actually pretty cool, especially when you think about what they had to do. They say that was actually the most expensive sequence for them to film because they had to pay for each individual roach.
And that is scary. Like when they start busting out of his skin, like as a kid, I was like, no, way.
I didn't eat Raisin Bran for years after that. I was like, when it came out of cereal, no, I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this, because I usually, when we talk about horror movies on this channel, and we talk about your first horror movie, if it hasn't been remade yet, I always ask if you'd like to see it remade today. We've seen that with Poltergeist. Now let me ask you this. Since Creepshow is your favorite, would you like to see a remake of the original Creepshow today?
No.
Leave it alone.
I don't believe they can do it. No. Yes, leave it, please. I actually am of the opinion that they should stop remaking classics and start remaking movies that aren't so great. Like remake 976 Evil. Do that. Right. Remake, I'm trying to think of another one that was just okay. It wasn't like an awesome movie, it was just okay. Driller Killer. Remake that one. That was just okay.
You're right, though.
Remake things that you can improve upon.
Right. But in Hollywood, they're going to look for what they can make $1 on. And that's so sad because that's not how it should be. It should be for the passion of the film. So, Lady Shasha, before I let you go, I always end these with the same question, and we're going to go to a skull count. We're going back to Poltergeist, and we're ranking this 0 skulls being the worst, 5 being the best. Here's the catch. We're not being critics right now. We're not judging it on production, acting, directing, anything like that. What we're doing right now, Lady Shasha, is we are judging this strictly on how much this movie affected you on first viewing. So 0 being the worst and 5 being the best, what would you rank Poltergeist?
Oh, 5. 5, definitely 5. I was scared for years of this movie. This is the movie that made me, as a child, take a running leap into my bed because I was afraid of something underneath it, and also afraid of something in my closet. Like this movie toys with every childhood fear you could possibly have. And it's
they
still
do a lot of
enjoyable. You could watch it over and over and over again, and it never diminishes the value of your enjoyment of it.
and even some of the little things they did in this movie that hold up so well, like the stacked chairs. You know, when the mom walks away and then she turns around and they're all stacked up on top of each other. And it's just like there was no cut there. You know, it was one fluid motion. And I love the way that shot is. I think it's an amazing shot in the film. So, Lady Shasha, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I want to remind everybody, I have all her links down here in the description, not just YouTube that you need to subscribe to, but all her social media links. So you can follow her on social media as well. I promise you won't regret it. Make sure you're throwing her a sub. Like I said, don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.